you very much.
You're all set. Have a good meeting.
Good evening and welcome to the Scituate Planning Board Thursday, July 13th. Meeting being held in the select board hearing room. It's on Zoom, Facebook, and everybody knows. We have a question agenda. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor? We have tonight without one of our members who's doing government work in Vermont with the FEMA. So at 6:30, we have a continued public hearing, a site plan administrative review and special permit for multi-family buildings and a stormwater permit in the village center and neighborhood district, North Central Village District, Outer Village, 817 Country Ways. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening. I'm Bill Armberger. I'm here with Alon PC, Chris with us, along with Sean Stockbridge and Kenny Sanchez. I think you know Kevin Grady, our engineer, and Jamie Kelleher, our architect. Since the last time we met with the board, we've had 2 design review meetings. They have been, and Jamie will been one of the buildings has changed some, which we've gone over, and some other things that are afoot that we're going to get some input from the town here. Kevin, I'm going to have Kevin review first. He did get some comments from the consulting engineer. A short time ago, we looked him up and had a chance to fully review this, but Kevin also did the landscaping, some of the infrastructure thing. I think he has a new plan, which obviously we haven't had a chance to digest, but I think there's some good ideas in there. So Kevin, I don't know if you want to update us.
In the future, we like to see the plans before they're discussed in a public meeting.
We're late today.
On your mic.
You're fine, just speak loudly.
I think you might get one right.
Yeah, you'll pick up, just talk
You
loud.
should be able to.
Okay.
So I'd like to say something before we start. We really need full plans, the whole set before they come in. I'm struggling with the that I had, and I couldn't, I go there. So we really need to have this really well documented.
So I apologize for not having the most up-to-date plans. There really isn't a major difference between the plans that I've got posted here and what we've already submitted. Basically, we've got feedback from abutters, design review, and the board regarding landscape and layout, where the amenity space needs to go, and in response to that, and in preparation for this meeting, we just asked our landscape architect to enhance the landscape. So we basically just added more detail. Sheet 2 shows basically a hatching of the areas where the amenity space was to be laid out. We didn't think we were far enough along to do really fine detail of these areas, because we're still working design review, those plans are moving, but we're getting so much feedback that we wanted to at least put something forward to say we're going to do more than just show green areas on the plan. So basically, we've just added some features to the plan. In this area, we're gonna do a paver patio, some benches, possibly a fire pit, which we show on this plan. We've enhanced the planting beds with some flowers, and we will submit this with our next revision set so that you can get a good close look at it. We left this as open green space. It's a nice flat area that people can utilize to kick a ball, throw a frisbee, play cornhole. That's a nice area to do that. Then we've added some connecting walkways, again pavers, to connect the buildings, and give a walking path for connections around the facility. Again, we've added another patio, seating area here. Again, paver patio walkway. In this area here, I neglected to point out that we added a gazebo feature, a couple more benches, some shade trees. So some nice open space for the residents to utilize. Across the parking lot, we have another paver area, and we're looking at doing maybe some play structures and some tables around this area. Again, shade trees, et cetera, providing some opportunities at each building and then a central opportunity to get outside and use some open space. So again, we just wanted to point out that we're going to be enhancing these things. We're not just before, I didn't think we were far enough along for fine detail on these, but I have my architect put that together as the architect. Since the last meeting, we did respond to peer review comments. We did receive a response back 2 days ago. We have not had time to respond to that. We will have that together prior to the next hearing. We submitted the traffic study. We have not received a response back, so I asked our traffic engineer to come to this hearing. I think it was necessary.
That was good.
At the next hearing, if we've advanced things far enough, we'll have them here and we can explain all the intersections and the traffic scenarios. We also just updated the public benefit plan. We initially had the sidewalk from, basically we're proposing a sidewalk to connect to the train station. There is a sidewalk down here, you can see the crosswalk at the Lincoln Park, basically. So we're proposing a sidewalk to connect all the way to the Cohasset town line within the right of way. Cameron sent me an email describing what the town would want. Basically, it's a 5-foot concrete sidewalk, granite curb. Accessible and warning panels, etc.
So when you resubmit that, you're gonna have a cost estimate along with that, so we know what the cost is of the whole public benefit sidewalk, et cetera.
Yeah, we've started that. We had it for the initial one. We're still working out the overall strategy, so we will give you that information. On the engineering side, I don't really have that much more to offer. There weren't any substantial changes in response to the peer review at this point. And again, I think it was more of a design review. We're working on design review and architecturals. I'll be happy to take any questions. And if I miss anything, Bill, let me know.
Just point of information, where you're talking about that flat area for soccer or whatever, that's a septic system.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's a septic system that was put in probably 10 or 12 years ago. Because the septic system in the front yard where you put those trees and you're gonna have a sidewalk was a failed septic system. So I'm sure that you were well aware of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was underwater at one point.
Yeah, so septic systems, every one of them will fail at some point,
I understand
at
that.
some time.
I
And
understand.
they have a design life. Generally, it's about 20 years. If you can get more than that, that's great. Basically, what you do when it fails is you remove the contaminated soils and you bring back in porous soils and pipe and stone or whatever type of system you're bringing in, and you turn it back on.
Well, that's why this one was put in back of the building and elevated.
Yep.
But it is the septic system that you're using as a public amenity.
The septic system is under the ground. The space above it is what we're using as a public
I
amenity.
understand that,
We have
yes,
some thoughts about that.
we do.
So in every yard that I've ever been in has a septic system, and everybody plays wiffle ball on it, plays soccer on it. I played cornhole over mine, played in my parents' backyard and made a hockey rink, and we've done everything. So I believe, in my opinion, it's an appropriate use of the space.
Just relating to Ian, one other thing, because I know one of the concerns which you had is Jamie's gonna go over, there's been a reduction one of the things we proposed initially, pretty formally, is a certain number of units in the front building would be restricted for septic capacity 55 and older. There will be no restrictions happening to age.
So you are not restricting the front building according to age?
Correct.
Well, thank you.
I thought it would bring.
A little smart. Mr. Challenger, do you have anything to tell us tonight?
Sure. Can I ask one question about the septic system? And I know we went over this last time, but I just can't recall. Septic systems. At the front or all the buildings?
No.
Or the back one back there and those two are there, is that?
Yeah, so there's an existing system here that's functioning as past Title V's, and that's still connected to this building, so we're gonna utilize that. It actually has more capacity than, we need, so we're gonna connect a portion of this building. The rest of the septic is under the parking lot and in this area here. I just wanted to point out one other thing on the landscape plan, we also added a row of green giant arborvitae's along the property line here. So, in a few years, that'll be a green wall, and there'll be no view between, I have them at my house, and they grow 20 feet tall, and a 20-foot hedge.
That would do.
Yeah, the green giants are safe from deer.
Yeah, they would.
Okay. So we have been working with a design review committee. We've been through now 2 hearings of design review. And that has resulted in some fairly significant changes to building 2, which is the first of the new buildings that you see here. And also some aesthetic updates to building 3. This is sort of a redo of the previous kind of aerial rendering that we had before, mainly showing the complete redesign of building 2, which is now a 3-story building rather than a 4-story building, and it was reduced by 4 units and 6 bedrooms. This is the previous view of that building 2, just to kind of give the idea. What we tried to do was to kind of get rid of this large sort of wall here and open up the entry to the building a little bit, push that side of it back, and try to create a much less obtrusive appearance of the building on the street side and as you look in to the property. We also created, so then, as I mentioned, some sort of architectural embellishment changes to building 3, adding front porch. We made some changes to the aesthetics of these gable features. As for building 4, that remains as it was in the past meeting. We also created, at the request of design review committee, more of a logistic rendering to show what the view would look like of this property from the street as you went by the driveway. And we did try to pay careful attention to exactly which trees were being proposed for the site. So it does give a pretty good idea of how the buildings look, from, actually from the street rather than that overhead view that we were showing before. Building 4 really effectively does not show very much from the street, given the vegetation that's being proposed. Building 3 does show up in the middle there. So just to give an idea, so we have, as I mentioned, reduced the building 2 is now 3 floors, 6 units, and a total of, I believe, 18 bedrooms. We have an overall reduction on the site of 3 total units and 6 bedrooms overall.
Wait a minute,
You said you need to know.
how many units in building 2 again?
Bedrooms 18, amongst the units, so
How
that
many units in
We have-
building 2?
12 units
okay,
and
all right,
18,
sorry.
18 bedrooms, I
Okay,
apologize.
all right.
The last plan set that we submitted has an accurate, count. Yeah.
So, each floor is 2 singles and 2 doubles on that building. Front elevation, side facing the road. Rear and other side of it. Building 3 now has, I remember this off the top of my head, 16 units and 20 bedrooms. The only major change, as I mentioned, was adding of the front porch feature, kind of give a little more, aesthetic to the building. Front elevation of building 3. Side and rear. And building 4 is unchanged at this point, 16 units, 24 bedrooms.
3 and 4 are still 4 floors, right?
Correct. So I think we're going to be meeting again with design review, respond to discussions that we had at the last meeting. But I think so far the process has been positive and they seem to be relatively happy with some of the changes that have been made, especially with building 2.
I'm either interrupting any questions, whatever, there are some.
No, I did my homework, so whatever you please done. Thank you. We'll hear from Mr. Ellison.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Ellison.
Good evening. So this week, TEC finished up our second round of peer review on the site plans and the application, including the stormwater report. I think generally the biggest challenge that I see that this plan needs to overcome is the slope of the driveway and the parking lot as you enter in, driving up towards building 2. It's currently graded at 9.23% in the profile, and based on my research of the Architectural Access Board standards, the maximum slope where a sidewalk is proposed, which runs along parallel to the parking spaces, are 5%. I think from a high level, I don't think a 9% slope with parking on it is a good idea. I think it could be potentially dangerous in the wintertime when we have slippery conditions. And generally, I do think that a sidewalk that meets the AAB standards should be provided from the building all the way in the back, building 4, all the way out to the public way. In my opinion, part of the purpose and goal of this zoning overlay district is to create connectivity. I know the applicant is proposing a sidewalk along Country Way that would get tenants of these buildings from the site to the nearby train station, which I think is a great idea. And I think it should just be carried all the way through the site, all the way back to building 4, to make sure that all 4 of those buildings are accessible. And I guess secondly, I do have a question related to the proposed septic systems and the existing septic systems. In general, I'm looking at the landscaping plan and there's quite a few trees shown like right on top of those septic systems. Is that acceptable That's a question I don't know the answer to, but it's just something that came across, tonight as he was presenting the landscape plan.
I think what we've done is tried to locate the trees around the leaching fields. They're placed between the leaching fields and also around it. I don't think we have any large trees on top of it.
Okay.
So
It's not allowed in part of the zone.
yeah, I mean, occasionally the landscape architect could make a mistake and show it on there, but if you see the existing system, the existing system isn't here, as you can see, there's no trees that are proposed. There's two leaching fields. One's approximately here, where there's no trees. I'm sure you can't see this piece, sorry. And then the other one is basically in this area. So these trees are sited right between the two fields. One of the things that this landscape plan also did was add additional connectivity. I believe we'll be able to make these accessible, less than 1 in 20. I believe once we get around here, I might just need to add some ramping to get down to here, and then we'll be able to make it all the way. Yeah, I started looking at that today. Again, we just got the comments. That one was from before as well, but there was a lot going on with architectural, so. So that's where we're heading with that.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis, are you all set?
Yeah, I think I know the board has already kind of discussed it tonight as well, but I feel like the board may want to just provide some clear direction on the amenity space over the septic fields. I don't know if that's been discussed fully or, in my opinion, that's really not an acceptable condition for a new construction project, but ultimately, there's nothing that I saw that clearly, points out that it's not allowed in the code. So it's kind of an interpretation. But I think it would be helpful if the board could discuss that and provide some direction.
Absolutely, thank you. So Karen, you want to start?
Why don't you go first?
So I'm gonna go where nobody wants to go, okay? And I'm gonna start with the real benefits. I've been to 2 design review committees, I think this is the 5th time I've seen this project. I finally straightened my head out over what I really want to say, and I want to take a straw vote among the board. I still think that there are too many units on this site. I know that you have a piece of land, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can max it out. And we are under no obligation, as you know, to create density bonus. You know that. So by right, we did 34, so let's make a deal, but I want to make a straw vote on my board to see if anybody agrees with me that there are just too many units on the site, and then we can go wherever that conversation brings us. So Rebecca.
Too many units on the site,
Yeah.
undecided at this moment.
Mr. Pearson.
I'd like to hear a lot more about why we think there's too many units. I don't like the idea of septic systems on their parking lots. There's a lot of sort of issues here. I don't know how to solve the 9%, 10% grade issue. So it seems like there's a lot of competing issues. The site may not just allow itself to be built up that far anyway. And then I really want to know what the benefits are for the density bonus anyway. So I would say there's still a lot to do here. I'm not ready to take it over.
So I think my biggest question, or what I'm really looking for, is when we spoke with design review, we didn't know where the mechanicals were going. So that was a big issue because we would put them really what would be in public space. So if you put them on a roof, they're going to be noisy. So there's a lot to think about. Is Mr. Pritchard said, you have a thing, but I don't know if it's going to be able to support 52 units, Ms. Berger.
It's too big and the site is too small. As far as I'm concerned, it's overkill. I think that you can put together probably instead of, we have the 8 units out front that have to be totally and completely rehabbed. They're not handicapped accessible, they're older than God, and they need work. So that's 8 units. I think that if you halved what you're doing, make things a little bit smaller and a little bit more palatable, and a lot more green space, and a lot more walkability, I could see my way clear, but right now, it's too big. You're pouring a gallon onto a quart. And I can't split that.
Well, we can work around this stuff, so we kind of know where we see it, so we have to answer a lot of Mr. Church's questions, and a lot of my questions. Which is, first of all, the septic issue, we have had nothing from the Board of Health telling us that it's okay, and I know that part of what you're doing is kind of all based on what we said here, but we don't know anything about the septic system, we don't know where the mechanicals are going. Mr. Ellison told us the driveway is too steep, so I think that we need to really dig in and really start a lot of work. And like I said, for me, just for my own personal, I looked at all kinds of GIS maps, and I know this piece of it really well. I think if we could come down from 52 to something closer to like even 44. So take the fourth floor off of building 3 or 4, something. I think that there's just too many units for this site. I think myself clear.
Very, I'd like to lose a building.
Okay. Yes.
Because what, part of what I wanted to discuss is, and I know Karen, the discussion back and forth with the design review, a lot of this was incorporated, but one of the confusions is, instead of talking about massing, they talk about number of units, and I think massing is important as the number of units, but massing is more important. And all the things which we need, obviously we need some input for the next design, so glad we're having this discussion. I'll come back to this 9% because a site of land is a site of land, and I disagree with the Scituate's own subdivision rules and regulations allows for 9% slope in public roads. All right, and so I understand connectivity and things along those lines, which we can address, but I don't want to get into, which I can, all prior projects approved in this town where it exceeds it and so forth and so on. I think it's driven by this, but I do agree we can improve and work on some things, okay? One of the things, and it's going, and Karen and Patty good at this, it seems that the design review were trying to get outside the context where they wanted to talk about public amenities and all this, and unless you correct me, because we're going back there in a couple of weeks, I said that's in the purview of the planning board. I really didn't want to get into that, so they had dueling rules, okay? Yeah, as far as the number of units, one of the things that seems clear to us is, but we're trying to get this, and there's design issues and all this stuff. I don't mean to, I don't want to play design, and Jamie can speak to this. But in the second new building, in building 3, it would, the feedback that we're getting, at least, and I know this is in slices here, feedback that we're getting from design review is, the 4th building, you can't see this building from the street, and it's pretty good the way it is. The 3rd building, you can see this. And one of the things which needs some input, and I think I just heard some input, you know, if we redesign that to reduce the floor off of that, that's something we can look at, we can probably do, which consequently reduces some of the numbers of units. But where we're back to is that there's a fine balance here. And what the fine balance means is there's been a lot of, wow, we don't like 4 floors of this, and it's not akin to the neighborhood. Well, the town adopted this to try to get transit-oriented zoning, all right? And we understand that they, for each site-specific things, you gotta make some adjustments, which we're willing to do here. But we've done a lot of work and we're honing, some of the stuff down. So I'm hearing what the voices, but the logical thing, if we were gonna have some unit reduction, we could be building number 3. And I think architecturally, I think just from the design review standpoint, that's something that is very positive. But once we start to get in, and that's what I'm saying, is the number of units, and I guess I don't fully understand. These are not condominiums, these are rental units of which, are gonna be counted on the Scituate's, affordability.
No. To the director of the local action unit and program, and she told me that 20% affordable at 80% AMI, you only count the local action units. You need 25% affordable for all of them to count, or 20% and 50% AMI. So that's what I was told.
We're going to get to, as part of public amenity, we're going to get to that issue on the 60%. We're not there yet, but one of the directions we need is, but the point I'm getting at is number of units. I can understand what is site design, what does site look like, what is this? But it's all kinds of things. You can make smaller units, you can have this, whatever, but it's the mass and the size of it. I can understand if a priority of the board is, we'd like to see the visible, in other words, the visible buildings, namely this building 2 and 3, to be able to bring it down to 3 stories, and that's it's already done that too.
Well, we know the building 3 is, you special permit for that anyway, right, because it's over 100 feet, right?
What?
No,
just the existing,
Project, oh,
the
okay.
existing
It's
building.
only the front building
Okay.
that is over, is anything, that's the 100 foot, over 100 feet.
So, and Mr. Keller, you heard them say, Mr. Keller, sorry, that in design review, how they wanted those gables put out to the edge, that would set that back a little bit.
Yeah, I
On
think
the side of
that,
the building, so it's not so flat,
no, we're kind of in the midst of that, but I think what we got might have been even more substantial in terms of what they're looking for.
Yeah, but they're architects, so that's why we.
That is in the plan to make a fairly substantial revision to building 3. We don't know exactly what that would be at the moment, but that's what we're planning to do.
And one of the things that brought up to me again is to think about the mechanicals. We told us clearly that we didn't know where the video were going, and that's the issue, especially on building 3, which is so close to the next tower, actually. So that's a big concern, and the other concern for us is noise. So if you put them on the roof, which they did on Iroquois, I was up there and they went, oh, that's noisy. That's noisy up there with those condensers going. So, and they're wide open, so that could be part of the river, actually, that we were ready to sound. But everything that we're writing, we had lots and lots of comments on this particular project. And you said that we don't want those stories, that's not what we're saying, because we get a lot of those stories in Rebush. It's just on this particular piece of land, it's very long and very narrow. I think it's this optics thing right now, which is it's just, you're going down and then you're seeing a big building. Perhaps for me, it's color, too. I was pleasantly surprised to see when things change color, how much your perception could change how it's on the real side. And you showed me now another project that I wasn't aware of, so.
Right. So, as far as us getting some further direction here, but one of the things, again, to point this out, is 8 existing units. So we're really talking about the 44 new units, and if we're dropping a floor off the building, that's gonna bring that number down. But what we're really talking about, I've always, you're talking about mass. You're talking mass, and if the answer is, the bylaw was adopted for the purpose of trying to transform housing. If that is not a primary point here, then there's all kinds of things. And but everything is price oriented. as to what we're gonna do for public amenities and so forth, and so forth and so on. So I think I'm hearing pretty clearly here in building 3, we're gonna do something, but before we start getting willy-nilly, at some point, we start to cross the Rubicon and say, well, screw it, I don't need a special permit. Let's just go without as the right is, and I'll go to the zoning board of appeals and get pre-existing use for the front building, so those 8 don't count. And we're getting pretty close to that. After we drop these, we're getting pretty close to that. And so we're trying to, we think we have a very well designed project. Our land is what our land is. The slope of it is what the slope is. And as I think Simon Goodwin said very aptly, the first development in a new zoning district, there's a lot of stuff being hashed out, so it's not easy. And it's easy for naysayers, I don't mean this board, to pick apart kind of things, but at some point, if you start pulling so many strings here, you have to back up and say, what are we doing here? Have we made a fundamental error? This isn't like we just decided to design this building. It's something, we talked for 2 years about this. We tried to do something that would have helped remedy Lincoln Park, but there was no traction, and no one wanted to do anything. But there's still, even if this development's approved, there's still an opportunity to do that. Whether the town wants to do anything, it would have to be more enthusiastic from that. As Karen said, yeah, look at the other affordability aspects of this and the 60% things, those are all things that we're gonna get to. But I suppose for the next wave we're gonna do on a personal level, part of the amenity space, and Kevin can say this, is on a septic system. Three-quarters of my usual backyard is leaching field. And from croquet to frisbee, you name it, we use this. So I think it's fundamentally unfair to say you can't use that space. Obviously, you have additional areas in space and whatnot. Right now, our parking, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, exceeds what our requirements are. But that's the reality. If you have your zoning aspect, yes, we're transportation oriented district. Yes, you can allow waivers, reduces, whatever, but at some point, you want to really have spaces so when people are coming to visit people, you really have them. So, but we have to get a feel an orientation in this. We'd like to be able to keep, let me see if we can put on 2 things. It sounds to me the consensus is part of resolution of this, because in other words, for us to keep designing this, if all of a sudden 3 meetings from now, we get to something saying, oh geez, we're so close to our ass, the right thing, we ought to go this and just redesign the whole project. And I don't think there's been a ton of effort relating to this, and I don't want to get to that point, but it seems to me it's pretty clear that from a design standpoint and from, why I use the word massing, that building number 3, if we could, along with someone's suggestion, say, yeah, if you could reduce this to floor, I think that goes something. To keep building 4 at 4 stories, again, it's not visible from the road. It allows us to do things. So the 2 things I'd like to get just some direction from board, and understand it's not a goal-granting permanence, is that 1 is if we reduce building 3 by whatever units on the top floor, do that. Is that a direction you think is a good direction?
Personally, for me, I think that would be an idea, let's design for you, to say the city, and that's that would go along.
Well, I think you're right that the issue is about massing on the site. Whether you have 15 units or 25 units in the building, you have smaller apartments, I don't know whether that's economically viable or not. Those are your decisions, right?
Right.
But I do think it's about massing the buildings on the site, and I do think that it's also not just about that. It's about all the other design criteria that you need to meet in order to build something on the site. So all of those things have to be addressed. Your comment about the slope of the parking lot and all of that, well, we had our peer review engineer suggested that there's an issue there, so I don't know how you're gonna address that.
It's not just the peer review engineer who brought it up, it's also the building commissioner brought it up in one of his comments too. He questions the ADA accessibility of the site.
And that's why we hire a peer review engineer.
Right, so that's,
To support us, so I think that sounds like a legitimate competing design criteria that you have to address. I do think having these septic systems under the parking lot doesn't sound like something that makes any sense. I love that you're looking for the health has to stay about some of those things. If you ever have to get to it, they can go to the parking lot. Doesn't seem wise.
So that's what leach nutrients can be under the parking lot.
Septic tanks as well. That's extremely common.
It's not common, I haven't seen it to this point yet.
We're, I'll just
I've
put
seen a
it
lot
this.
of stuff that's not that.
A septic system under a parking lot,
In fact, the last one I had at my own home, Board of Health said, to replace that, you can't go back up to the park.
that's it,
Right.
that's not correct. Title V actually says that you just have to add a vent if it's under if it's under a paved area. There's no real concern with that. Just designed a academy for a hockey rink in Rockland. That septic system is under the parking lot with all the time.
when do you intend to refile with the Board of Health? The Board of Health has only had one set of plans. They're not giving us any comments because they've only had one set of plans. And the planning board is not gonna approve a site plan that they don't know if the septic is gonna work.
This, our next set of revisions, we will re-engage with them. Again, the design review, for me to do fine design, engineering, then move the building and then do it again, I didn't think it was appropriate to do that in this iteration. But I think we are gonna be there shortly.
I think it's fine, but at some point, it's one of the big issues for Scituate, right? It's
Sure.
sewer, so the lack thereof,
Sure.
it should be addressed.
As far as.
Again, to me, it's still the combination of all those elements, including the massing of the buildings, the siting of the stuff from the street. If you do that and you make more than the sort of as you like units, then there's just a density bonus that has to have some public benefit associated with it, right? And that's the way, you're right, that's the way the zoning bylaws set up. Very listed in that. So I don't have a dog in the
No.
the number of
No, I
units you
understand,
actually
and
have.
I really appreciate your commentary on this. And so, I think the first answer is building number 3 from a massing standpoint. But building number 4, the design review committee seems to be okay with that because of visibility and other issues. We'd like to be able to keep that, other than some design criteria substantially out of this. But I guess what I'm hearing is, despite what the special permit provisions are, and despite what the state is trying to advocate, that sounds like it's not a primary concern of the board. Is that a fair statement?
No, that's not fair statement. It's like anything else, it's a criteria, it's an objective. With everything else, you have to do first site plan review, right? And so you can accomplish that, then talk to us about what it is.
No, well, that's, and I think you didn't state clearly what I was saying. Is assuming that we can address these other issues, which I feel confident. And before we start saying, so that no one can make some decisions here, assuming we can address all of this, and And to say this, and assuming building number 3, then building number 4, and all of a sudden now, from 52 units, we're at 40-something units, all right? And we're at there. And what I'm just saying is, I understand a project looks to be what a project looks. There's all kinds of zoning ways. By going to the zoning board of appeals, I can exclude building 1. And to start all these things, but I also appreciate the fact that you're trying to achieve the best project here. So that's not something, if we're gonna do something of this size, that, I would suggest for that, right? And I think, so I guess from hearing is you don't want a project the size of what this project is. And one of the things the design review seems to not focus on, they're focusing on, Stephen, you get it right in the head, unit number. They're giving unit number. We make units half the size they are. It's the massing that's the real issue.
I think that's the important.
No, I'm not, and I agree with you.
Hopefully, I mean, we take a lot of stock in what the design review committee says in terms of massing, architectural and all of that. So we're gonna listen to what they have to say.
Oh, of course. And so, and they've had some really good insight and some things which we adopted and continue to adopt. So when we go back, or when we're gonna go back to them, and we're gonna do modifications to building 3 yet, and to be able to get back to answer some of the other issues that have been raised tonight, vis-a-vis septic system, use of these other areas, some massing reduction, things along those lines.
By the way, as far as using the grass area, the septic system, I don't have a problem with that. Right? I'm more concerned with functionality, the access to the septic system. At least it's easier if it's with grass and you can dig it up. I mean, you can dig up 3/4 of the parking lot and fix the septic system. You're gonna have a lot of people parking somewhere else and huge disruption. So, I mean, it's just, those are the things that are kind of more concerning for me.
So from Title V.
I'm just speaking for myself.
Understood, but from Title V standpoint, see, we get the assurances and the science, such that there's a comfort level, or if we're gonna make modifications, so that would deal with that. So I think we had some good direction from there. Kevin, what am I forgetting here?
I think we've covered any engineering things, and I think they've given us direction.
All right, Jamie, how about from your standpoint? Yeah, the other thing which we didn't discuss, and I think Jamie, because you got this, the design review board is they're putting a new, they changed the facade on the building that's on the street, and they try and make it compatible with that, and I think the consensus was.
That's the case.
On the building that's on the street.
Yeah.
They've changed, Jamie has changed the facade and some other things such that they thought it was more.
I just didn't have to.
They thought it was, or they use it, but the architects think it's.
It's hard to hear that.
I just, definitions is like this. So like I said, it isn't that we don't want projects here, it's just that because it's new, it's just the site is very narrow. So I know that you've heard us, so I know you've heard us, and we've also heard design review. So the next time I think that we see this, we're gonna see some, like we did on building 2, we'll see some significant changes to building 3. Yes, Pia.
On building 3, is there any way I can understand, and certainly would agree with using the 4th floor, but is there some way that you can telescope it in front to back or side to side so that it's not this long rectangle?
That's what design review.
I know, but it's just, it's too long and it's too close to the back. It's a perception thing more than anything else.
How long?
I don't know how deep it is or how long it is, but just the rendition of it,
100 feet.
it's big. The
As
other
long
one,
as it can get the, sort of the facade to work, then it should be.
may I finish please? Thank you. have you given any thought to any 3-bedroom units in this development?
Yeah.
There are?
There are.
How many?
One,
That was changed to a 2 and 1.
yeah.
How many?
No, I said the other day, there was 1 3-bedroom, but they're saying they're gonna be changing that, so there won't be any.
So right now,
There
there's
won't be
one.
any.
Correct, there aren't any proposed currently.
Okay, so this really does not bode well for anybody that wants to have more than 2 kids. Where it goes, I guess. So, no, it'll either be 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom, that's what you're saying.
Is there a reason for that? I mean, part of the, I know that the MBTA compliance stuff is different than this project, but they're trying to encourage, some 3-bedrooms so that it's family friendly. I thought 1 3-bedroom was a good attempt to make it, family friendly.
If you did 1 3-bedroom per building, that's a show of good faith. Of having it family oriented.
That sounds like a public event.
It doesn't to me. It sounds like a given. We want to include people here, not exclude.
We'll take a look at it.
Seriously, take a look at it.
Because part of the MBTA, which is different from this project, but some pretty well we were done. What areas here, so.
Good. And next time I'd just like to see what the board else says about the septics.
We do have comments back. I didn't see anything that was problematic.
Oh, so you got some comments?
Yes.
They got a list of about 29 comments that the Board of Health was shaking their head on. That's what I was told.
So there are some serious issues we have to address.
Kevin, on the serious issues,
I didn't see anything that was problematic.
All right. Karen, anything else?
All right, so one of the issues that hasn't been addressed yet is a water study. You indicated at the first meeting that you were going to be required to do the water study. Nobody's requested the scope of services from us, but that we said was going to be required. Right now, the next design review committee meeting is on August 29th. So we need stuff submitted at least a week before that meeting. On landscaping, we had asked you last time if you could try to tell us what's in the existing wood and show some existing trees to remain. And we kind of asked, well, what's there? Because that was part of your buffer as well. We've already addressed the issue of mechanicals. ADA accessibility is a critical thing for this development, and that's not going to go away. So I just highlight that as an issue as well.
So, let me ask you a question, let me interrupt you, Karen. So if we satisfy the building commissioner in the state on the ADA stuff, that's good? That does it correct?
Yeah, they start.
Okay,
I mean,
then-
you have to, right, you have to satisfy the building commissioner on the ADA compliance.
Okay.
We just bring it up in relationship to the slopes of the parking lot and the sidewalks, because we don't wanna see you get way too far down and find you can't make it ADA compliant.
Yeah,
That's-
we're already way too far out. And if, as we said at the very first meeting, we wanna have like a series of ramp village, we could have a ramp village. 20 examples in town of Scituate that turned out disastrously, but the answer is if we satisfy the building commissioner and the architectural access board, then we'll get it. Obviously. I thought we could have a ton of fill with on them like
I
that.
think the secret to the ADA is to make sure you incorporate it, because everything else is done afterwards, and that's why it doesn't work, right? Jenkins rules for the jump sign.
Right.
Cool.
I also think that we need to work on the construction sequence. It's kind of written for one building, not 3 buildings, and it really needs to be elaborated. Lighting, the board, we're gonna have to opine on, is the lighting sufficient? I mean, maybe that's the next time. I would like the drainage report to include a summary of rate and volume, not just rate. I think, you indicated last time for fill that it was generally 3 to 4 feet, in some places 5 feet. Is the board understands that, just making sure that you're.
What's the elevation of building number 4 in relationship to the street? How many feet up is that?
The existing topography, the grade of the street is about 21, elevation 21. Grade where building 4 is now is 38. 19, 17. So that's existing, so now we're going 21. And the slab elevation is 40.3. So it's 3 feet higher.
Fencing on the property, you know that it's a 5-foot fence. A 5-foot fence really doesn't do anything. I think it should be a minimum of a 6-foot fence. You know, obviously the board, you know, next time we'll talk more about the density bonus and the public amenities, but the board has been using 17.5 for a unit for density bonus with other public benefits, you know, kind of subtracted from that amount, which the sidewalk would be a public benefit, so that's why it's important to have a cost estimate for the sidewalk. Right, comment.
All about points. All about points here. Anything else? This is a public hearing, so does anybody in the public wish to make a statement? Yes, would you say your name and your address, please?
Yes, hi, my name is Scituate. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment.
It's really hard to hear you.
Yes,
Yeah.
really loud.
Should I move up?
We got this here.
I actually might want to defer to this. My name is Scituate. I live in Virgin Pines on Main Street. I live directly adjacent to this development. And so of course, there's kind of the access on and how we about the massing and this goes about massing is the sufficient concern for us. And I think as you know, I sent you some letters and the property owners are involved in your right homes and they're very modest these days. So this is going to us the design review committee did say here as a local law. So it's going to be actually very shorter buildings in this way. The wall between the house and Scituate, I think I might start calling it. That being said, I do have some comments about the one thing that I wanted to comment too about is the slope. I think that that not only is it just some practical perspectives, and I think we should what goes on about the ISIS now. We deal with this in our countries. It can be quite treacherous in the ISIS now. Here, you have all of, you're bringing the multi-family dwelling, numerous people that need bedrooms, and they're all going to be going up and down. And the other thing is the dumpsters here, it's back here. So everyone has to go up. You have to go up, all of this. They're the only ones with direct access. So I haven't seen this plan. I guess as Mr. Joseph knows, I'm always in the planning board office, sort of asking for updates. And so in fact, I got some updates, so I can understand what Mr. Hamilton's comments, all our comments lead to Mr. Grady's. I haven't seen those comments, so I feel a little bit better. One point I did want to make is.
You can go,
Okay. Madam's first. But the, here, water main is going up here. So it's going, everything that's here right now, I imagine, is going to be removed in order to maybe I'm wrong. To discuss that, but, you know, right now we have relatively significant trees that are on us with a barrier, with some sort of protection from all of the impacts, physical impacts on society. And that's coming down as far as I can tell. And I'm happy to hear that you may be requiring the applicant to tell us exactly because that really impacts us. I haven't seen where the giant arborvitae's is being proposed. That's great, but all around here is a leaching field. And here is going to be water main. So the underlying systems, you can't really have, depending on the root system for a tree, I imagine, you can't really have any significant trees there. So we're very limited in what visibility they're gonna give us. A 6-foot fence, I don't know. Maybe we need a 20-foot fence. The other thing I wanted to point out was this is a retaining wall right here, 65, basically. We're changing all sorts of elevations right here. Our property right now is not the same elevation. This is going to change, maybe up much higher. So we're right here. You know, and our neighbors to the walls in here. It's a real problem for us. There's going to be a walkway, stairs here, and a walkway nearly back here. I haven't seen anything to say how people are going to be safe when they go there. There's no ADA, is that ADA compliant? There's also relatively little. How are people getting to this proposed leaching field common space? How are people with disabilities getting there? There has to be connectivity. I think in terms of disabilities, it's not just ADA compliance, I think there's fair housing. And I think that there are some requirements to allow connectivity among multi-family development. And they all have to be addressed. So it's not just a letter from the building commissioner. There's other requirements. And we hope the planning board will address that.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is a lot of this is anecdotal, but be assured that whatever is required by law will do, and also whatever is required to try to be accommodating neighbors. We're gonna try to do that also. So I can't comment. I know what Jolly Giants are. It's kind of the go-to thing that grows 4 feet a year. And what the soil conditions are, what you can build, and what grows where, whatever. I'm not an arborist. But we'll take a look at that and make sure what we plant is grown. That's gonna be condition of our permit anyway.
So you need to be assured that your landscape architect is a registered landscape architect. And Mr. Joseph is also a French landscape architect, so that barrier will be as best as we can make. So it will be like a road, they will be put there. They won't put anything in that would not broken, that are pretty much assured.
If it lives,
No, that's,
I mean, there's no sprinkler system, is there?
but like I said, in every project that you go to, they have to replace the plants all the time, so that's part of our purview.
So I think there's very limited, by the way, higher, as you can see, probably because of these constraints of fundamentals. There's very limited height to those landscape needs, to provide protections to us. Again, I don't know where they'd be provided. The other thing I did want to, Mr. Ellington did point out in his initial comment letter that the Architectural Access Board Regulation 21, CMR 22 stated that accessible routes shall be provided from accessible parking, accessible loading areas, and public streets or sidewalks. So again, the 90% slope comes into play, And that seems to be a requirement, to the public street, not just within the site, not just connectivity within the site. Getting to the traffic study, correct? And septic. So I guess I really also, another point I did want to make in terms of the density bonus, I think applicants stated in their original narrative that there was no wetlands to be concerned with for sidewalk. But the peer review consultant for the conservation commission identified areas where the fronts and site plans now reflect that. So I did Mass GIS review. I believe that there is 200 feet between, there are less than 200 feet between the river front, could be. I don't know, maybe a request for determination or a conservation commission review is required. So I don't know how that we go about that, to be part of the ordinance, and that's such a public density bonus that's being requested. But I think this all needs to be sorted out.
Now, we're already before the conservation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're right.
And again, there's so many moving pieces about the first aspect of building sizes and all this is a ton of anecdotal information. I'm not a wetland botanist. I'm not a coastal geologist. And I don't think there's anyone who is, but we have the people who are doing this in the town as the consulting engineers, so we'll be.
I am the liaison to conservation and zoning, so I listen to all of these meetings, no matter where I'm at those meetings, so I'm be sure that.
Yeah, and I will bring that to the conservation commission as well, I'm sure Mr. Grady will.
The conservation commission indicated they haven't received revised plans yet either because they're still waiting revised plans yet.
And all of this really factors into cost, and I'm sure that, it may be really worked out. But $50,000, which was the initial offer, it was somewhat ways in your direction, and I know they couldn't get to this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is John DeWall. I live at 431 South Main Street, the butter to the project. And my comments all along in letters and past meetings has been just that it's too big a project, too small a lot. And my concerns are maybe a butter, I don't know which way to go here so I'm not blocking everybody's way here. If our house is here, the DeJournet's and ours are here, we're going to be looking right out on these buildings. And if you remove this canopy coming up our driveway, which is hard against the town line and this project, that's going to have a significant impact on us. And so my desire would be not only to reduce the height of these buildings to fit more appropriately in a historic neighborhood that is ranches and capes, and to find a way to instead of removing the canopy here, that perhaps the water lines can come up the driveway to where they need to be, and preserve this area here. Same thing with the wetlands in back. We share that wetlands. We have all kinds of animals coming out of that wetlands, and we also enjoy the benefit of the plants back there, the trees, because it's a buffer against the railway. So my sense is that this, I'm not opposed to the project, I'm just opposed to the size of the project, the impact that it's going to have, not only on us as abutters, but the surrounding area. Find another building in that general area that has the kind of mass that this has. They're 200 yards away from Mordecai Lincoln Mill, up to 200 yards up this street on South Main Street in Cohasset. There's 3 or 4 more Lincoln capes. There's no other building with this mass on that street.
We're not aware of that.
Okay, I have my piece, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jeff, just answer the question. We all treating wetlands? No.
And that goes to conservation.
That's great. All right. but I spent this in this misstatement. Secondly, this is in zoning district. This is in the zoning district. We're doing everything that's within there, subject to the purview of the board. So there's not gonna be half-story cape houses. That's not what voters of the town of Scituate decided. All due respect to the two citizens of Cohasset.
Absolutely not.
You will be able to kind of give us a broader look, like at what the houses look like on the abutting side of the buffer looks like, you'll still do that. As part of,
Yeah, so we'll
part of what you
yeah, we'll
present.
look at that.
I just wanna see how that all works out.
Sure.
Sorry, Madam thank you. I just want to follow up because the only reason why I mentioned wellness, I'm quite aware that it's not approved here, is because it was mentioned in the narrative, there were no wetlands there. And I just think it needed to, that might not be the case.
Yeah, there's wetlands in the rear, there's
In the sidewalk.
50-foot no disturb zone associated with that, and then there's wetlands across the street that, once they removed the dam, it actually became a riverfront, so we're addressing that. It's across the street, there'll be no impacts to the resource, direct impacts, so.
It's all the graded area within the buffer zone. Right under the.
I just need to clarify more, it was the density bonus that I was suggesting. Was have wetlands comments.
Set?
Excuse me?
Oh, sorry, sir.
My name is Michael Bittner. I live at 56 Mordecai Lincoln Road. I'm very familiar with the property in the area. This is 2.3 acres of land. Let that sink in. 2.3. We're talking about creating precedence on a new type of zoning. And to put this large and dense a project to set precedence for everybody else to follow is poor judgment. You haven't talked about what do you do in this tight little parking space when we have a snowy winter? Where's the snow farm? Where are the cars going to go? Where's the snow going to run off to? Certainly right into the river. We have a water shortage in Scituate to begin with. They're adding how many, what's the total head count in the total flushes that this massive project on 2.3 acres will present? You gotta look at the obvious. It's staring right at us. If this 2.3 acres,
Hold on, we asked for an updated septic system, and we will at that point.
but the 2.3 acres with 52 houses and 100 plus more people in new cars and Amazon trucks, steep slopes. These guys are being greedy. They're asking for way too much. I think I'm hearing 34 is what the rules permit. Given what the rules are, don't set a bad precedence for the next person that gets a giant project stuffed down their back. I have a letter to you with my concerns. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
So the last speaker, I won't get into personal disparagement like you just did. I don't think there's anything.
All right, let's not go there. Let's not go there.
But as far as alleging people have poor judgment, did greedy, things like this, I'm gonna let the board make those decisions. We're gonna let the town's consulting engineers and our engineers make those decisions. But I would hazard a guess, if anything was built here, that the last speaker would find it objectionable anyhow.
That's incorrect. I'll live within the rules, and that's what we're gonna do. You're biting way too much out of the apple, and you're being disparaging, quite frankly.
All right, so part of our requirements under site plan approval are to show delivery areas. Part of our requirements are to show snow storage areas.
Right.
So the planning board considers these in every case. The zoning does say that you can have a density bonus if the planning board thinks that there is sufficient offering for a density bonus. This is part of what the town of Scituate voted in the bylaw. The planning board right now, they're not there yet that they can make those type of decisions at this point in time.
One last point. I was at the design committee meeting. And my takeaway was, the design committee was somewhat muted on what they could do because the group was negotiating with planning. So whatever design committee was listening to, they were muted because ultimately the planning board was gonna make that decision. To suggest that the design committee, I was there, to suggest that, it was a good feeling. I think pretty much everyone on the design committee felt the project's too big. So they go from 55 to 52. Bring it down to 40, 38, we'll give you a little bit, $50,000 for a sidewalk is peanuts.
Again,
You have more
yeah,
public,
the only-
you have more public comment.
Oh, hold on, hold on.
the only thing I'd recommend last week is read the bylaw. That would be a good start.
Bill?
It's enough.
I'm Ann Roderick, I live at 42 Mordecai Road, and maybe I missed it, I was 2 minutes late. But did I hear Kathy say that we're gonna revisit the traffic study?
We haven't even talked about it.
You haven't. Well, one thing I would like to keep in mind is the traffic study was done in February. In February, it's dark at 4 p.m. or earlier. There are no dog walkers, there are no kids from the private schools that are taking the train walking back to Cohasset or Scituate. There are no bikers, there are no people walking, running, okay? February is a bad month to do a study. Second of all, I don't know how Mordecai Lincoln Road was not included. I have no idea. If someone can enlighten me, that would be great. I would think as a taxpayer that someone in this town would advocate for us. We are a major cut through. When people are coming up Gannett Road, when they see the red light, they see the backed up traffic of the train, they cut through us. My son was hit by a car on that street. All the neighbors have gotten together. We have gotten together with the town about it. One of my neighbors even purchased one of the slow radar signs and gave it to the town, that we borrow frequently. Mordecai Lincoln is a major cut through. We met with Al Bankert years ago before they renovated our street, and we had a sidewalk. They took it out of the painted line with people. There's a bylaw in this town that any sidewalk that gets removed and a road gets repaved, it must be a granite curb sidewalk. We are already behind the 8 ball based on bylaws, and now we're not included in this study. It's disgraceful. I won't stand for it. We have lots of young children, and Mordecai Lincoln needs to be in the study. If we have to get together and petition the street to make this a one-way, you're not coming off Main Street or Country Way between 4 and 7, and Gannett Road between 6 a.m. and 10, we'll do it, trust me. All the neighbors, all the moms and dads, no one likes what's happening before this project. And we need a liaison in this town to advocate for our neighborhood. It is a historic neighborhood. You can't go by another car without being on the sidewalk. I'm a dog walker. Furthermore, on Country Way in front of this project, there is constant ice and water. I walk my dogs when I'm not working in Boston as a nurse. I am constantly doing the loop. There is no sidewalk from the train to Mordecai Lincoln. There is ice every day in front of Asia International in this project. The runoff from heavy storm rain, ice melting, snow melting is treacherous. You cannot walk this at all. It needs to be really looked at, and that's my point.
Thank you.
Can I say something about the traffic? The traffic peer review, they did a traffic study, the peer review was not completed. And it will be completed for the next meeting, so traffic will be discussed at the next meeting. Our traffic peer review, somebody representing the town will be there, and the applicant will bring their traffic engineer as well. It's just that we haven't got to it yet.
Thank you.
Is there anybody online who would like to speak to us?
If there's anyone online that'd like to make a comment, you can please raise your hand or hit *9 if you're on my phone. But now would be the time for public comment from Zoom.
We all set then? Yes, we're gonna continue.
We're suggesting a continuance to October 12th, to give time for the design review committee at the end of August. And then if there needs to be another iteration back with the design review, that would give a little bit of time. But we're gonna wanna see the submittal a month ahead of time. So that the peer review engineer has adequate time to review the submittal.
We made that, this time, right? We got the materials to you in time.
You got the materials when you were asked to get the materials. I'm lengthening time for the next time so that everybody has it in a timely manner and we can get you, the goal is to get you the comments a week before the meeting as well, so you have time to look at the comments as well.
Sounds good.
Okay,
I move to accept the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for site plan administrative review and special permit for 4 multi-family buildings and stormwater permit in the village center and neighborhood district, North Scituate Village District, Outer Village, DCN, NSV only until October 12th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. and to continue the time for action for final move to town clerk until October 27th, 2023.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
We can't start.
So let's.
Zero.
Push buttons, let's go.
Go up.
Just raise the stuff.
Nice, that's what it was on.
This here before we start that already.
Do you wanna do a couple other things?
Sure.
Before we get to, the info?
Okay, we can do minutes.
If we can do it, how do we spend money?
Yes, we spent money. Let's do minutes.
Okay.
I move to approve the minutes of June 8th, 2023, and I move to approve the minutes for June 22, 2023.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. And accounting. I move to approve the requisition of $3,225 to Horsley Witten peer review 18 Drew Place for $1,471.45 to Horsley Witten for peer review services for 14 to 16 Old Country Way, for $140 to Chesley Consulting for peer review services for 533 Country Way, for $5,368.35 to Bob Berwick for return of surety plus interest and unexpected guarantee funds for 35 Dreamwall.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I do want to quickly liaison reports. I went to community preservation Monday night. There was discussion about pickleball courts. And, huh?
Said excellent.
Oh, yeah,
Rebecca loves pickleball.
okay. Anyway, one thought was to put, this man is looking into all of it, is to put it out here. Both courts out there. The other one is to put it on a parking lot in North Scituate, by the playground there.
The parking lot is needed for North Scituate.
I know that. So he has to talk to the selectmen about where to put it. And then, we had discussion after that about the tennis courts, to put a 5th court over here. And the 4 courts that are there now are in total disrepair. So making those more viable. And then that probably, when all is said and done, will relieve the stress, if you will, over at Gates on those tennis courts. And there are already pickleball courts over there now.
Okay, I'm gonna challenge you and tell you, that if they move the tennis courts here, they're gonna remove the tennis courts up there. For parking. I'm gonna bet my bottom dollar on that.
We'll have to
Well, they need 10, they need 5
We need
courts
5,
for the high school,
Yeah.
Pickleball courts,
because they can't compete otherwise.
and they're painted, so that's a little bit different.
Well, whatever. Okay, and then,
They don't have none of this.
No, they have nets, they're not the regulation side, but yeah, they're painted on top of the tennis courts.
Yeah.
So they're not,
It's
so different. No, it counts, I mean, it's nice, but it's also, there's a lot of lines
Confusing.
going on.
Yeah,
and then we had the Perfect Dinosaur expansion application, and if you remember at town meeting, the CPC paid $41,000 for 2.3 acres. That's sort of down below the ball field, it's on Country Way, Steve, you know where that is, right?
Yeah.
And it's landlocked. And so the big question is, you know, should they put lacrosse or soccer or something down there? So a few people are gonna look into it, because the first thing that's gonna happen is you have to take down some trees and everybody's gonna go listen. And then too, there's parking and also there's a great slope for sliding in the wintertime. So that's an issue. And the Conservation Commission is returning to CPC, hopefully about $145,000 in unexpended stuff. And then
so with the open space stuff,
So they can use it for pickleball courts.
he wants almost $500,000.
What do you need all that money for paying for?
So it's a bedtime list for. Also to Mary Sprague, who has been our admin for the past 10 years, is retiring from that position, so we have to find somebody to take her place. And then I went to the selectmen's meeting Tuesday night, well, anyway, at any rate, there was discussion about, they're putting together a group of 9 as a subgroup to the Water Resource Protection, Water Resource Committee, to look into desalinization.
Desalinization of ocean.
yeah, I know somebody really thought about that, they just, I understand, and the thing that I worked in CDM is the waste from these, when it turns to brine, and nobody encourages with that, and it just, the
Very
waste is always,
energy
yeah,
intensive. Takes a lot of energy.
yeah, it takes a lot of energy.
So, God knows where we put it. And,
We put it down here for
along with everything else.
All right, then. I went to conservation, I think I told you this the last time, the people who are building the new house on First Foot want to put a giant ramp in 12 inch in the harbor. So that's chapter 91, there's lots of investigation, conservation continued that much to issue bring up the engineer from the state who's coming to do that for the applicant. He said, well, you need to have that, and they were like, absolutely not, we don't know about solid pipes or whatever going there, and there's lots of animals, and apparently the initial dock is too big, and the float has to be cut by half. So that's a lot of work that's gonna be done on this, that would be interesting, since it's right at the end of the jet.
Good.
And that's why there are no piers out there now, because the velocity is pretty tough out there, it's pretty impressive out there, right? You look out there, right?
Yeah.
On the other side, that's what it went,
Outside the cliff.
yeah,
That's 98.
yeah, so
Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready, let's go.
In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 9 and 11, and the Scituate bylaws, Section 580, Village Center and Neighborhood District, Section 750, Design Review, Section 760 parking requirements, section 770 site plan review, and 940 referrals. The planning board will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, July 13th, 2023 at 8 p.m. in the select board's hearing room, Scituate Town Hall, 600 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. The subject of the hearing is an application submitted for a major site plan review in the Village Center and Neighborhood District, Greenbush Driftway Gateway District, Greenbush Village Center Sub-District regarding the construction of a general commercial building for a plumber shop with 4 garage bays, site parking, site utilities, and site amenities at the project location of 18 Drew Place. The property is owned by Drew Place Realty LLC and the applicant is David Larson. The property is shown on assessor's map as parcel 530507. Plans are available for review, including Town Hall, Scituate, abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend, and we have a cast of thousands of dollars.
You don't.
So, hi, good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Padilla. I'm with Grady Consulting, here with Mr. David Larson. I'm gonna get up here and pretty much explain all the project is. Pretty much it's an introductory hearing for us. We already got peer review from Horsley Witten. We are working on those. There are some changes we already did in the plan, but still this is a work in progress, but I want to open the door here to discussion. So what we are proposing is a plumber shop. It's under allowed use as a general commercial building. In terms of the parking, we considered the area as the general commercial, same thing with the existing structure. At the beginning, there was some back and forth as to is there a residence or an office? The assessors considers it as an office. So the parking is provided on that existing building along the existing driveway. So right now we have an existing gravel driveway that goes around the property in and out. We are keeping those driveways. We're not doing any other cuts in the lot or closing any of them. In the location of the proposed building, we made sure to leave enough room for a vehicle to turn around safely. There is a 12-foot minimum around this area, and we will be showing more traffic flows and all that, which is part of the peer review process. The erosion control considered, the original plan had everything. One of the peer review comments was let's separate this erosion control plan, and that's what I did in this case. We have a silt sock going all around the site. We have a stockpile area in the gravel, and we defined the limit of work more clearly than we had before. We are proposing landscape areas behind the building, access to the building on the back, and a handicap space as required by ADA that gives access to the building through the back. And if there are any questions, I would.
Thank you. Janet, are you here? Yes? Peer review engineer, how are you?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Hi. For the record, my name is Janet Bernardo, and I'm a professional civil engineer with the Horsley Witten Group. We were brought on to conduct a peer review of this property, and we provided the planning board with a letter dated June 21st, 2023, that basically reviewed the site plan application as well as the zoning and the stormwater. It's a relatively lengthy letter with a number of points that I believe the applicant can address many of them, but there are a few comments that the planning board may want to think about the best way that you want to address them. One question I had in the beginning was what the existing building was. I thought it was a residential house, but now I believe it's an office building. So we do make a number of references to a residential property, but it's actually an office building. So we apologize for that misunderstanding. But understanding that the proposed structure is a prefab building, and it appears to be more of a garage than a plumber shop. So we were trying to understand what it actually looks like, how it will function as a plumbing shop, and does it as a structure meet the requirements in the zoning for items like materials and pitch of the roof and that kind of, it doesn't seem to have any exterior utility connections. Like frequently they're on the roof or the side or something, but this is just, all we're seeing is 4 sides with doors. So there might be, I assume that there's more to it than just 4 sides and 4 doors. So understanding what that looks like may help the planning board in your decision-making. There's also, the property is in the watershed protection district, water resource protection district. And in that district, your regulations say that an applicant is not supposed to be able to recharge. It specifically states that dry wells are prohibited. The applicant is proposing a dry well in the front corner of the property, as they just noted. And it is for the roof runoff, which is typically considered clean. So I know your regulations are prohibiting it. I just wanted to make sure that the planning board kind of consider what this, how they are proposing to recharge their stormwater in what's a typically accepted practice, but your regulations specifically say that it's prohibited. So probably want to give the applicant some kind of a direction on what that should be moving forward. They are slightly reducing their impervious area, but by basically removing some of their gravel of the parking, the existing driveway and parking area, reducing that a very small amount, and they're going to have pavement around the new building instead of gravel, which and the total area is slightly reduced. But as you noted, the plumbing shop is an allowable use. There's also and so talking about the prefab building under section 750, which is our comment number 11, I numbered our comments like 11, and the way I changed it on my notes, I'm not sure what page that is, but our number 11. Under section 750, your design review for business, commercial, mixed use, and multifamily development. It's a section that may be waived by the planning board if you deemed that appropriate. We do have a number of comments in there talking about like the minimum length of the street facing wall width. It's a dead end street. Do you want them to meet these requirements? And so giving them some direction on whether they need to meet the shape of the Gabriel roof and the typical materials of the building as they're listed in your zoning requirements. Maybe it might be something you want to talk about with the applicant. And if there's any further amenities as far as walkways, frontage, your zoning requirements kind of illustrate benches and path, but it's a dead end street. Do you want them to provide some type of amenity? And maybe I'm reading your regulations wrong, but this is kind of what I was seeing as I'm going through it. I'm like, do they want them to do all of these different steps? And it's your regulation, so you might, but they don't have a lot of them at the moment. So something to think about. I didn't understand exactly what the interior of the garage plan was going to be looking like. I was wondering about the confirmed parking spaces, which they have confirmed. And there are a number of comments regarding the stormwater and clarifying how that goes, but it would be important for the applicant to know if a dry well, which is, I believe, is it closer than 10 feet to the property line?
No,
It's not, it's 10 feet off the property line,
yes,
but, yeah. So understanding, and that's a pretty typical place that they might put it, but how your regulations read, they may need to change that. So that's just something to be discussed. I'm happy to kind of go through more detail, but it's kind of a long letter.
Yes, it is. I'm confused. I'm confused. This is not the building I thought it was actually, to tell you the truth. It looks like a house, but it's an office, right?
The existing building is, yeah, it's just a, yeah. It looks like a residence. There's only 3 houses on the dead end street. And when we bought all right, if I could just say a couple of things. So I've been plumbing for 35 years, and most of it's all been in Scituate, but I started my own business for 27 years, all of which I paid rent over at Fitz Mill in Scituate. So I've always had a dream to be able to own a piece of property that would allow me to put up a building so I wouldn't have to pay rent. I have just 3 guys that work with me, so there's always 4 vehicles, and that's it. So we're proposing this shop that, I'd be able to drive in one end and come out the other with no interior partitions, and get out of the rain, have some stock in there so that we can accomplish that, and maybe put my boat in there in the winter time if I want to, but it's basically all gonna be storage and, working on the trucks and just having a place so I can get out of the other place and not have to pay $1,000 a month for 27 years. But Drew Place, when we thought that would be the property when they came up, we bought it, and it was a complete disaster. I mean, we cleaned the property up. If you look at that property, it's the nicest one on the street. I have a junkyard beside me and a junkyard behind me, and we take pride in the properties that we own. So, I mean, we dug down for the proposed drainage system. 9 feet down, I went with a machine. There's no one speck of groundwater. And Grady Consulting designed these to just handle the runoff from the building. I have a picture of it's a Morton building that Scituate has used. The brewery is a Morton building. Scituate, I think they did one of the firehouses down in Humrock, there's a Morton building. Chip Fagan has a Morton building. So they're very nice looking. And I'm happy to show you what that made. I mean, I don't have the exact what it was look out, but I can tell you can have an idea of what it will look like.
So I think Mr. Lawson, my real question is what you're looking for is a commercial garage?
No, well, it's a general commercial. I mean, it's basically for storage. I mean, it's completely wide open. There's no interior partitions. I mean, to show different bays, there really aren't any.
So the issue is we don't permit commercial garages, correct?
Well, you have to remember that the VCN has uses in building types. The shop of a plumber is an allowed use in this district. So what constitutes a shop of a plumber? That's what you have to ask the applicant. What is a shop of a plumber? The floor plan that's been provided shows a very small area in proportion to trucks for parking. So then you have to ask yourself, does it meet the definition of a general commercial building? those are the things you have to ask yourself. I mean, because this is what they're saying, it's a general commercial building. And the general commercial building is a variable floor-plate building type that typically accommodates a variety of ground floor commercial uses and upper office uses at a scale that is compatible and complementary to its given district. Residential uses are not permitted in a general commercial building. Well, he's not proposing any residential in this, in this building. So you have to decide if you think it meets that criteria, then you could give them then you could grant a site plan review. We know that there needs to be more work on the drainage. I think I think it's fair to ask why 4 bays are needed for a plumbing shop. It's fair to ask about noise, fumes, if there's any retail in there, parking hours, cleaning products. All these things are fair to ask. You can require, ultimately, if you permit this, to have the trucks parked internally to the building when they're not in use. So it's a number of things that the board is going to have to decide for on this project. In addition to having the drainage and the general VCN requirements, this is in the VCN. You need public amenity space, you need certain things, because that's what the zoning says.
Okay, I'm a little confused. You had initially said that you're able to drive all the way around the building.
Yeah, that was a redesign we talked about after we submitted that. That's part of the changes that will.
So that's gone away.
No,
No, it's
You
been
can.
included.
we're gonna maintain.
We're gonna make it so that we could drive through the,
Like if I have a plumbing delivery, I want them to be able to, just because you can't, the streets narrow.
So they're gonna be able to go around
Yes.
this building?
Yes.
Okay. What are you gonna do with the existing structure?
It's gonna stay as is,
An office?
yes.
And
What are you gonna do inside of the
Inside's gonna be plumbing stock, really not much. I wanna be able to, like I said, I wanna be able to put my boat in. If that's allowed.
As a plumbing
Sure.
don't
shop,
talk about your boat.
what are the things that happen inside?
Just basically stock that sits there and they bring the truck in and you
So
restart the
it's
truck.
just storage or moving it into the mobile trucks.
Exactly.
That's it.
And the
No other
job,
modifications,
you have stock.
prefab stuff, any of that
No.
stuff happening in here?
If you have, say you have a job and you need this heating system in 2 weeks, something like that, that sits in there and then when you need it, you pull it and knock it go.
Did you make a
But-
comment about driving through this building?
Yes,
I don't see how you could between where the bathroom is and the storage.
will you be able to from the front, the way, I can always,
Oh,
I wanna be able to do that, so that's important.
yeah, that will be reconfigured. That floor
I
plan will be
think so.
We had to
this
come up,
this doesn't work.
As is, no.
Well, thank
That
you
will be
very much,
reconfigured.
that's why I was so confused.
I
Thank you.
apologize for the
This
confusion.
is why we
It
really
feels like
like
we're a
that.
long way from.
Yeah.
This is why we like to have all the stuff that we're gonna be looking at that night, because it does get confusing, and just puts you behind the 8 ball, so we don't have anything to look at.
yeah,
So we're telling us.
no,
I think it's very important, whatever is attached here, first of all, we need to see what is actually going in.
Right,
what
Second of
actually is
all-
going in the building?
yes.
No, well, we need to know what's going in the building, but we need to know
What
what
type
the
of
actual
building?
floor plan looks like, what's in the building,
The
how
floor
it
plan
is, et cetera, right, so.
Basically non-existent, it's wide open, no interior walls.
Well,
I'm gonna have a lot.
you said you're gonna drive through this thing, and I don't see how you get a truck through this thing.
Can't, they're gonna redo it.
A modern building is similar to that. The siding would be the same.
So you go in this, and you come out that way.
Yeah, you go on one.
Can you tell us the specific one you're gonna use?
No, that's just, I'm giving you an idea,
On this
Just
other
a-
one, there's
there's a beautiful red one down on, Common Street down by, it's gorgeous. I think O'Brien put that up.
You did.
And then that's what it's gonna be, something like that. But if you, what do you have to look at?
So we have the old plans, but that doesn't help us,
Yeah, that doesn't have much.
that doesn't help us at all.
Well, I mean, it's basic, but I mean,
But I don't like
that
looking
shelf
at
and
it.
storage wouldn't be there, so here, this would be, to a place you could come in and you could drive out one of these two doors, you know, because this is not, there's no interior wall, so this is like right open. So if they ever wanted to park and put a truck there or something like that, and still be able to
So
size through.
there's no storage happening in this?
Just,
Possibly not right there, because it'd be right in the way, but I mean, in the back sides of these, you know, in this half of this bay, would probably do storage. And they'd be able to load it in here and pivot and probably some in the back here as well.
how much stock do you keep on here, Mr. Larson?
I keep a hardware store on here. I don't like going to the supply house.
So what kind of materials are in there?
PVC fittings,
What kind of storage of hazardous flammable materials,
No,
stuff
no,
like
speak
that?
of-
No gasoline,
no,
no solvents?
I mean, there's 10 little cans of PVC cleaner,
But nothing else?
no.
What ends up happening after, you do a job and you come back with the old water heater and the old stuff?
Yeah, that stays in one area and then a scrap guy comes
Does it stay in one area outside or does it stay?
outside.
Outside. Okay, then you better come up with something to hide that,
To hide it.
to hide it,
Put it behind something.
to fence it or to do something.
Well, I mean, it can go down at the back side of the building, you know.
This is really gonna look like the back of your truck, right? It's gonna be like a big rendition of the back of your trucks.
Exactly, yep. Which has always been a dream. I feel like I've spent thousands, if you figure out how much money I've spent every month. I've worked for town Scituate schools for years. They haven't in the past 10 probably, because they put it out to bids all the time. But, all my work's in Scituate now, always has
I
been,
think you
like
have to
95%.
You have to have a storage area for your metal and what have you, storage and your trash.
Yeah, but it's, like, I don't like it sitting around, so as soon as it's here, it's gone.
I understand that.
I mean, I can put it inside.
Well,
That might be a better thing to do.
I think,
That'd be a better place.
Two of them for argument's
I mean,
sake.
the last thing anybody wants to see, even though it's a dead end, is a toilet sitting out front.
No, it would never happen. You wanna see the toilet, look next door.
Okay.
And that's been allowed, and you look at on Ford Place, it said, don't, I'm sorry to say, with all due respect. I take, you take a lot of pride, we painted the building, if you look at it, it looks hydrangeas all up front, it's beautiful, from what it was when we bought it.
I think people are surprised that I do drive by all of these properties every single time something comes up, so I know what it is I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I have a good idea where I am.
And then as far as like the walkways and stuff, I mean, the only people that go down that road are people that, I mean, it's only 3 houses. It's either the people that are walking their dogs to go take a crap right around the corner in a public tea spot, or the guys that are coming around going to Reynolds for booze.
And you pick up the nips.
I do. They have to when they throw them right in my feet, yeah.
So we need a better tour, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can get that because, we've just been I haven't gotten like, we've been in the initial stages. And I do, I have a good copy of, it's not colorless, so it's really,
Okay.
but I would like to, move forward with it and then I can talk to them and tell them what siding color, I mean, I don't know if there's a preference, but it needs to be gray and that's the house. And then,
The question is, do you want to send it to design review committee or not? I mean, you have a right to send them to design review committee.
I mean, it's just a garage,
So let me ask you this, these are metal buildings, correct? So if Mr. Larson picked one out and decided to use it, we don't like that one, we want you to pick this one down, that they could be doing, because there's not much they can do to fix this,
Well,
right?
they have
Yeah,
different
beautiful
amenities
buildings,
on them. Some of these have cupolas on them and stuff like that, right?
So you would have to pick out which one you want, if you would give that to us.
Yeah, because they design them to whatever The one I want wouldn't fit on the,
It's too big.
I mean, we do have some, I mean, is the board willing to waive design standards? So that he can have a prefab building, or do you want him to try to pick out a building that meets some of the design standards in the zoning bylaw? That's the question that you have to ask yourself.
So who was on the board for Article
Me.
You were Stu.
Yeah.
So it was who?
We gave it to the design review committee.
it would be very
And
similar to that.
they made modifications to the building they selected by adding some of the cupola features and stuff to make it look better. So, I mean, what I would,
I mean, it is a
you know, I
difference.
can't, I'm not gonna sit here and try to design that, I think
No,
there's a set of design criteria in the bylaws. To the extent that you can, you know, select the right building that meets all, or maybe there are a few that it doesn't meet, and then we can talk about those. But, you don't wanna leave it to me to try to figure this out.
Definitely a lot of-
well, it is a dead end street if I could, you know, with zero traffic, you know. I'm not saying I would never put up an ice foot, trust me.
No, I get it, it's just, we have, you know, we have
We know.
I'm just,
requirements.
right,
and-
sure I do. I
And to the extent
appreciate
that you can meet those requirements, and there are things you can't, because it's a prefab building or something, then I think you just have to articulate what those things are, and we have to decide whether that's, we can waive those, you know, so. But
Well-
without a discrete, you know, proposal, and having looked at what the requirements are, and says meets all these requirements, but doesn't meet these three, or whatever it is, you know, we're just sort of hunting and pecking.
Right, but I mean, if it was something exactly like Untold Brewery or the Red Barn down on Common Street, or, you know what I mean?
I would take that
Yeah,
as.
I mean,
as-
I'm saying, you know, pick what you
Pick
think
what
is
you want.
right, right,
And let us
come
know.
back to us.
So I'd have it drawn out in colors so that,
That's what we would like to see.
yeah.
But look at the zoning bylaw as well, there are some criteria in there for roof pitches and that kind of stuff that this is a new bylaw, they weren't there when Untold, all these criteria weren't here when Untold Brewing went into it, and now we have these criteria here.
But I mean,
So is the-
realistically, I mean,
Is the board gonna be willing to waive some of this stuff?
it's just
That you have to,
a building,
I have to tell you,
that's all they want. I've been working on this for 3.5 years.
I would be willing to allow this to go forward, I mean,
Just
It's
need
a
a little
business-
more information.
just more information, more whatever.
It just needs to be concrete.
Yeah, that's
And
all.
I feel like I'm
What-
reaching
whatever
around
it is that
at
you don't want
various
to
pieces,
look for.
and I understand that, but you gotta come in with,
With a real.
this is,
With the real building.
I think this looks good, this is what I wanna do,
Yeah,
here's where it deviates. You know, I think we, we would like to do this, right? And
Dave can help you with
then
that.
we'll go through it, right?
yeah, I mean, I can certainly talk to Morton and have them draw me up exactly what it would be, and then have, have you guys.
In your engineer will be able to help you as well, when you look at the bylaw, you'll know what you're looking for.
Well, and I think Janet's kind of already outlined
Outlined
the
a lot
agenda,
there.
right? So you've got a roadmap, right?
so,
I'm more of the, let's get it to look good and all of that, if they have to waive a few things, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that whatever's going in there, meets the requirements of the water resources district. Is you too close to the water resource, right? So, just gotta make sure you meet those, right?
So,
alright, so the board is satisfied that this is a general commercial building?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I characterize it as, I guess. I wouldn't wanna see this become a place where you grow your trucks in, change the oil, drop the transmission and all that kind of stuff. Because I would then start to worry about what's happening with the oil, right? So
Yeah.
where is it gonna end up, right?
And WRPD, we understand there's greater care.
Yes,
Not-
same thing about storage of, 55
Yeah.
gallon drums or even
um,
smaller, canisters
yeah,
of
no,
gasoline
so-
or something like that.
that's all, material.
Well, I think
So
it's,
like if we were to do this, right, and we would condition any approval on the notion that you can't store those kinds of things there, you're not allowed to, right?
So tell you very clearly.
Sure.
So you just need to be clear in your head
Yeah, I mean,
what
that's
you
just,
need for
to
a
me,
plumbing
that's-
shop, right?
common sense, you know.
So that we know what it is.
I also feel that we need to be somewhat flexible in terms of allowing a business to continue. I think it's important.
That's true too.
I really do. And it is very difficult in this town to find a place
There's no way.
for a business. So. And I
Yeah,
feel
it's
very
not.
strongly about that.
You get another building, this class, and you come back and you tell us this is what you want, and this is what you need a waiver for, and we will seriously consider it.
Okay.
Moving forward.
Do we have a continuance here for?
I highly encourage you to look at
And
Janet's
Janet's letter,
questions.
your letter.
Talk to Janet.
Oh, yes,
Questions.
yes, we've been in contact and, yeah, we're
And
going
just
through
address
all,
them, right?
yes,
If you follow this, you should be okay.
that's the process we're going through, yes.
So,
Gary, can you read this?
I would also kind of like you to go through,
Hello, gentlemen.
I'd like you to go through the site plan administrative review standards and tell us how you meet them.
that with them?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
You will help him with that?
Yes, of course,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
I hope you wrote that down. I don't know what you said.
The site plan administrator
plumber.
review.
Okay. All
I
right.
can plumb your house, but this stuff.
Don't tell us that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hi, can I? Only, I know you just said that you want to make sure that they comply with the Water Resource Protection District overlay. And so at the moment, the dry well that they're proposing is prohibited. So I just want to make sure that they hear that and they're.
Prohibited in that location,
In that location, you can move it to the other corner of the
Right.
property,
exactly.
and then that would be outside. So I
Yes,
just want to make sure I heard you and that they heard you and.
We
Okay, thank
also did dig down 9 feet and there was absolutely no groundwater whatsoever. And I don't believe that pit is going down that deep, just a thought.
We will take a look. at those,
Okay,
yes.
Janet,
Are we all set, Janet? Thank you.
I move to accept the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for major site plan administrative review and special permit for a general commercial building in the village center and neighborhood district, Greenbush Stripway Gateway District, Greenbush Village Center Sub-District, ECN, GDG, GBC until October 12, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. and to continue the time for action for filing with the town clerk until October 27.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 27, 12,
No.
October 12th.
October 12th, 7:30 p.m.
that would be the next.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of work.
You have tons of stuff to
More
I
than
can
you
do
think.
that in no time.
do. Okay, you have homework, Mr. Larson.
Pardon?
You have homework.
A lot of them. I don't give up easy. That's why I say to customers when I'm trying to fix their problem, even though it's a nuisance. So don't worry, I'm not gonna leave you stranded. I'll come back and I'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Y'all have a good evening.
Okay.
We need new stuff.
We have a discussion about the 6 McDonald Terrace.
Do we want to release it?
Night.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. I don't know if he's planning on coming or not,
I have no idea.
why don't we wait a few minutes? I mean, other stuff before it, and just give him a chance to come if he's gonna come. Changes to the stormwater regulations, on August 10th, we're going to have a public hearing, to change our regulations, to add, to make it crystal clear in our regulations that we can have, including stuff chapter 44, section 53G, we're gonna add that stuff in there. Additionally, there will be one other change that we will be making. We will change the time for action from 21 days to 30 days to match the bylaw. We may end up putting in something for chapter 44, section 53G and 1/2, but I don't know that at the moment. This is stemming from some problems with an applicant that I've been working with town council for now almost for 5 to 6 months. So, we really need to get this done. If anybody read the email today, you will find that small cells are withdrawing. So we now have time on August 10th to do this. They're withdrawing, they don't feel it's fair to string the planning board along. And while they figure out how, it could take several months to figure out if the site on Jericho Road is, National Grid will permit it. And they are gonna look at some alternative locations in the harbor, but they very well could come back with our place. But they want to do their homework, so they've got.
And then they'll be able to tell us what they did for their homework.
Right, so they are, that's gonna be withdrawn that night, so that freed up some time on that night. So we have to have this public hearing pretty quickly. Bylaw review committee liaison, did we already appoint somebody? We need,
I said I would do that.
Patty will be, they want to review, the general bylaws is my understanding. And we need to be worried about that because stormwater is in there. And stormwater, DEP, we know is going to be changing the regulations. We don't know when they're going to be changing the regulations. But that's one of the reasons why we've been holding off. And we've also been waiting for, DPW has been working on for a couple of years now. It's a lower priority, how the stormwater regulations comply with MS4. So there's a number of things that have to happen.
Would you like if I slip my name and have you sign something or something like that?
Yeah, probably.
I used my first advice.
I think they just have to give them your name.
Yeah,
Don't
you
forget
can
to
just
sign
sign
it.
off, I don't know, sometimes you have to hold the sign piece of paper.
I don't believe so.
All right, update on MBTA communities. We've had 2 meetings with our technical consultant. Our next meeting is the 25th. I think the technical consultant is, we said we're not willing to change certain parameters. So I think the technical consultant is, what we're gonna find is we're gonna end up with, probably 17 units per acre by right for pretty much the 4 sub-districts that we've picked. And they're pretty much gonna occur with what MAPC found. They are going to be going through the whole bylaw and telling us where else we need to make changes. One of the things that the state changed back last October was they said you can only have 10%, maximum 10% affordability in your counting. And so we have 20% affordability when you get a density bonus, otherwise it's 15%. And we've asked our consultant to try to see if we can not get a waiver, because if we can't get a waiver, then the town has to do an economic analysis. And I think our numbers are showing, with the projects that we have in the permitting line, that it's not deterring, the density bonus is not deterring these people from applying. And so therefore, the 20% affordable units we're getting affordable units, but they're concerned about housing, not affordability, which is a juxtaposition in itself because, we have to be concerned about both, which is why why you added inclusionary zoning into it. But we should know more after our meeting at the end of July. But I think the rough time frame would be that when they start telling us actually what we need to do with the zoning, that they'll be working on that in August. We probably go to the selectmen in September and tell them where we are, what we're doing. We would have our zoning workshop sometime in November, and then our public hearings in December, because we have to have final wording by January 8th, 10th, something like that, for the spring town meeting. This really has to be on the spring town meeting, because the town has to be in compliance by the end of 2024. So we're, Patty, myself, Shari, Karen Connolly, and Jim Boudreau have been our working committee, and we've had, several meetings. So that's an update on that.
So Karen, can I ask you a question about the small cell? Should we be looking at our bylaw for wireless communication?
I don't know how we have time.
I know, just.
I mean, if somebody wants to take that as a project,
No. Yeah, right.
but, we kind of mapped out the schedule from now through the end of this December, because water treatment plant will be coming in August, it's going to be filed. They need to have the water treatment plant permitted by the end of the year.
Whoa.
So I've kind of made a schedule based on the water treatment plant and some of the other big projects that we still have, fitting in our zoning public hearings, et cetera. So to that end, we need 2 meetings in November and we need 2 meetings in December. We obviously don't want to meet December 28th. So the question becomes, do we want to go December 7th and December 14th, or December 14th and 21st?
Not the 21st.
Okay, so then we'll go 7 and 14. November 16th and November 9th. So that, because we always have to move our November meeting because of Thanksgiving, so we just have 2 meetings back to back together. For, one of them is our regular week, and one of them we'll have to find another location.
What is the 16th? What day is that?
Oh, it's on Thursday, I kept everything on Thursdays.
So that's the Thursday before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, yes.
The water treatment plant, do us schedule up a little bit.
Oh, that's correct.
We did attend a preliminary meeting on that the other day. I will tell you, the building seems well thought out. The site, it's a lot of grading. We asked a lot of questions. They're gonna work with us and, hopefully, they'll be able to answer all the questions of drainage and everything, as we go through.
And I am so grateful that Mr. Pritchard is involved.
Oh, me too.
Really. Thank you.
I think the thing that struck me is 3/4 of the building's below groundwater.
I know.
Is what?
Below ground.
Below groundwater, so I don't have a plan to waterproof that thing, but
I
I
don't
just see
even,
that thing's leaking like a sieve.
And you pointed that out.
Good job.
Yeah, it's, what they say, groundwater is 2 feet.
Yeah, I mean, they're 24 feet below groundwater.
Yeah, I don't know. They're up
I
high.
think that when it comes to you for a public hearing, you will obviously ask all these questions. I mean,
You better have something in there.
I'm feeling them.
it's gonna be a major site plan review. And so we've been told they will file August 10th. And we'll have our first public hearing September 14th.
And Steve will be the point person,
So
When's the first hearing?
14th of September.
September 14th. We've allowed, in building the schedule, we've allowed a hearing in September, October, and November, just for the water treatment.
Okay.
So,
And that's assuming they will file in sort of early August.
August 10th.
They're gonna file August 10th.
August.
I mean, that's basically what they committed to, is filing August 10th. They said they had a little bit more site investigation to deal with, but they may file anyway. I mean, but other people do that anyways too, so, you know, that could be in peer review comments.
Who is running this program? In other words, who's the GC or the,
Well, they told us that was something that's like 24
no,
hours.
no, no.
It's
They
Woodward
have,
Curran is the
Woodward
engineer.
Curran is the consultant.
Okay, so the consultant will be dealing with us, or is it Jimmy Dro, or who is it?
It's Kathy.
I mean, I assume that the other day the
Who's
consultant.
the town sponsor?
Yeah,
It's Water
yeah,
Department.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
DPW,
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
Kathy.
DPW, right, yeah.
But it was interesting, they were pitching, they were talking to us. They were talking to him, because
Because he knows more than,
the other man was sitting next to him.
All right, so I guess Mr. Berwick is here, so before we finish the planning and development report,
we, Mr. Berwick?
yeah, just before we finish.
What are we looking at?
Let's
I don't
do
have
it.
it.
8:45.
There's nothing here, there's nothing to read, it's
Oh, no,
not
that's
sure
what
we
we
hear.
What is the issue?
What is it?
What are we talking about?
What is it?
So why are you here?
Mr. Berwick wants a surety back on 6 McDonald Terrace.
Oh, is this the one where we got the bad baby?
Yeah.
Okay. So how are we gonna fix the bad baby?
There is no bad baby.
Yes, there is, Mr. Burrow, is a joke.
The seam was heated and made smooth and then rubber coated.
I sent you a picture of what it looks like now.
So it is my concern, Mr. Burrow, is once the snow plow goes in, there's no one to pick it up. Once you
It
know,
didn't happen when it was uneven and now it's very even.
How much is the surety?
I believe it was a $75,000 bond.
What would it take when it breaks to fix it?
how would you fix it?
10 grand?
I think it didn't cost 10 grand to do. I mean, my recommendation is maybe you hold 5 grand cash for a period of 5 years. And if the homeowners association needs it to fix it, then that's what you do.
Yeah, we won't know until we get through a couple of winters.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. I mean, it does look
That's
pretty.
the only open issue.
That's the only open issue. It's occupied. The building has a certificate of occupancy. We have the as-bills. But I just felt that you would want to know about this paving. I'm not really sure these shared driveways work so well. They really need to be constructed at the same time versus
Yeah.
one several months ahead of the other to get the right intent.
Another word for
There you go.
learn something else on this project, every project we learn something.
Problem releasing the surety, but I think that you should retain some, I think that you should ask for $5,000 cash check to be set aside in an account. That if the homeowners association needs it to, should the seam,
How long, how many feet is this?
the whole length of the driveway.
About
About 100 feet.
100 feet.
So both condo associations do have budgets for maintenance, for reserves, for repairs.
I would say they set it aside.
I was in one of those situations, we can have, that's the problem.
We'll release the rest, we'll set that aside.
Well, I mean, it's a bond, so we have to kind of release the whole bond and then
We'll
ask,
release it when we get
Check
the
the
cash.
cash.
right?
Do you need a motion?
We have a.
Very,
So-
very.
What about the time frame? I would think 2 or 3 years would be sufficient.
3 years. 3 years is fine. If it hasn't blown up by the property.
It will all be blown up by then. Okay, I move that the surety bond for 6 McDonald Terrace for the mixed-use special permit in the village business overlay district be released and $5,000 cash or check be set aside in an account with the town for a period of 3 years for repair to the scene, joining the payment of 6 McDonald Terrace to 18 Brook Place. During these 3 years, the homeowners association can request funds from this account for the repair to the scene should it be accomplished. The check must be received before the surety is released.
And can we make that 3 years from the date of the occupancy permit?
No,
3 years
that's
from
back
today.
date, that's back date.
That's today. Come on, Dawn, enough.
Your second,
Second.
all in favor?
I could give you a hard time.
Hey,
It's my job.
I know, I've known you too long, go ahead.
Yeah. You're trying to make America kind again.
Oh, please.
Okay, are we good?
You're done.
Thank you.
You'll be in tomorrow with the check, right?
I can write it for you now.
Then write it and give it to Karen.
I will see you.
All right, so the planning and development report. As you know, we still remain quite busy. Seaside at Scituate.
That keeps coming up.
Well, you know, technically, they're still working out there. They are adjusting curbing,
The teeth.
teeth.
Even some of the driveways, like drop that big.
Well, they're going to end up having to cut out parts of every driveway, and
Yeah.
they plan to do the top coat in the fall. That's the last I heard. The nature trail is having some problems getting stabilized. But they don't wanna build the portion of the nature trail around the basin that's by the clubhouse. And I actually support that concept. They have not officially come and asked yet because they're throwing out two, the homeowners association is kind of throwing out two options to me. That we give the cost of that, option one is gives landscaping in exchange for the cost of the nature trail, told us the work. What the planning board deems is an equivalent amount, and the homeowners association agrees to. Or toll provides the money to the homeowners association with the board's approval, and the homeowners association does the additional landscaping.
And so in either case, is there a nature trail?
In either case, just the portion down by the basin, basin E by the clubhouse, that portion's eliminated because,
Is there still access to it?
Yes,
it's still at, right.
it's a little shorter than it was originally.
No, I just wanna make sure there's like, street access and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, I mean, all the rest of the nature trail is in except for this portion, and, it was end up supposed to go on top of the berm of the basin, but then it was supposed to go down and connect, on a steep slope down to part of the trail, which on the other side of the pool. And let me tell you, you can't construct it. You can't construct it. So I think that this is a reasonable solution to ask for additional landscaping. It's just, who do you want to, you'll get to approve the money amount.
Additional landscaping, where?
Well, that's what we have to decide. It's basically the homeowners association wants to be able to decide where to put some additional landscaping.
Who's the homeowner association? Has the builder given it over to the homeowners?
Yes, the builders,
So that he doesn't have control of the homeowners association?
No.
I would give the money to the homeowners.
Yeah, I'd let them figure it out.
I mean, they still owe me 15 more trees and I was told 3 weeks ago.
Well, that's a different
Right, that's a
story.
different condition, but they were gonna call me and we were gonna do this and, you know.
It's my car told you anymore.
I'm fine to just make the trade and give the money to the homeowners association with the proviso that whatever they plant doesn't screw up the stormwater system,
That's true.
right?
One of the gentlemen,
I just think they need to like check in and make sure what they're planning, they should just check in with you.
yeah, and I'm in touch with the homeowners association sometimes 4, 5, 6 times a week.
Yeah,
They're very frequent flyers.
Yeah, frequent flyers, and one of the gentlemen who's on it is an engineer. He used to work at Woodard and Curran. I mean, so he understands what he's doing, and he's going through the drawings with a fine tooth comb, you know, trying to get told to do everything they committed to.
And so how does that agreement get struck? Is there a written agreement somewhere?
Well, this is what I'm gonna go back to, I'm gonna go send him an email tomorrow and say, this is the planning, I told him I'd bring it up at the planning board tonight, and I said, I want, you know, written agreement.
There should be a written agreement that goes to the homeowners association that says these funds are for the homeowners association for, you know, whatever they're going to do, but should also qualify as, you know, this is not meant to waive any, you know, kind of site plan approval criteria, particularly for stormwater, right?
Right. And I think they understand.
Just
that.
so they have a written criteria when they're making decisions.
Have you had any complaints about water in basements on Thelma Way?
What way?
Thelma,
No,
Where's that?
That's a goal.
Tolbert. I had a client in today that I think it was this past winter had her basement flooded.
Yeah.
And it turns out that there's basically a sinkhole right next to the foundation.
well, I mean, that would be an issue that they should be dealing with toll roads.
They are right to the top.
I mean,
Then she was telling me there's another woman on Lois Ann who had mildew big time. And insurance wouldn't pay for it and neither would toll. And because they were wealthy, they paid $50,000 out of their own pockets to fix it.
I mean, I'm trying to get them to finish everything on the plans at this point in time.
That in and of itself is like,
And, you know, at some point, you know, we have the individual unit pod as built, but we don't have the whole site as built.
Right.
But, I mean.
It doesn't look like they're finished with the stormwater system yet.
They've supposedly gone in and revamped all the basins now. But I'm not sure that there's been I
It's
don't know
hard
if
to
this,
tell, the piece along Hadley Road looks like it's still sort of Rube Goldberg.
well, I mean, we kind of agreed to let them do riprap,
Is that permanent?
yeah.
I think
Because of the volume of water that goes down there.
I didn't think the other day the way to go up and look at that.
well, you can go out tomorrow after the rain's done.
I mean, so they still, you know, I've been told they're gonna be out there for the rest of the year, you know, still working on their list of items that they know they have to complete. And, you know, we're still holding our bond and, you know, they'll have to come back when they think they're ready for the bond and they'll have to convince you to release it.
You did it the last time.
Not at all.
It came in before we did it.
So I'll let them know tomorrow. You know. Fun in the planning office.
All the time. I still can't get over how we managed to allow them to put those cobblestones that look like teeth on the sides of the roads. How did that, I don't even know that.
Well, you know, one of the problems they have is they have to put the top coat on yet, and a lot of the manhole covers and everything are grade of the base coat. They're gonna have to lift them.
Yeah, they're gonna have to, and they're gonna have to, and it's a complicated process when you have to do that.
Yeah.
Change the curving.
Yeah.
It's
It's
taking
gonna
a
be a
long,
mess.
it's gonna be a mess.
More than it is now.
It's taking a long time to do it too,
Well, with all those residents in there now, they're not gonna be happy with that,
so,
having to put up with that.
so it's an ongoing thing. I'm just keeping you informed and, you know,
One thing if someone that knows what they're doing is running the association, that's good.
yes,
And this guy does.
it's a very good thing.
Well, it's good if they turn it over to, so the builder no longer controls.
And all is that it?
Motion,
Motion to adjourn.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question offline.
Wait a minute.
Are we off?
Yep, you're good. Have a good night, everybody.